Hi everyone and welcome to Before the Bell presented by Sports Combat News. I'm your host Brian Willett, and today on the show we have a local MMA fighter who has a fight coming up on January 26th at Casino in Moncton, New Brunswick for Elite 1 MMA's Bitter Rival card. We welcome Marc Hebert. Marc, thank you so much for joining us. How are things going so far?
Pretty good so far. Thanks for having me on the show. Super pumped for my fight this January.
Well, we're glad to have you here. In January, you're going to be fighting against Gary Brown, who is from St. John, whose record is 1-3. How are you preparing for that fight? Is it any different than you normally would prepare for a fight?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I get offered pretty tough fights, and a lot of my opponents are grapplers. So for this fight, it's going to be a fast-paced. It's going to be a fast-paced fight, and it's going to be more of a brawl. It's going to be wild and unpredictable. So for this fight camp, we're just fixing up a few holes in my game, and we're going to work on pressure. We're upping the fight pace, and we're going to be ready for Gary. I watched a lot of footage on Gary, and I don't think he has one boring fight. And I don't think he's took more than 2 steps back. So it's definitely, a lot of people say their fights are going to be a war, but this one's definitely going to be quite the battle. And
and I've seen you fight quite often, and your fights are always fast-paced, and you seem to lay it out there, which is always entertaining for the fans. And for you as a fighter, I imagine the adrenaline is just kind of rushing through you. You did just come off of a loss to Brad Sullivan. How does that change your game, or you talk about holes in your game and kind of training? Do you start focusing on that weakness more, or do you kind of move on and just start preparing for that next fight?
So my fight with Brad made me realize a lot of things. Our coaches tend to tell fighters that ring rust doesn't exist, and that even if sometimes if you don't have a good camp, that the instincts are still there. And for Brad, I was really hoping that was going to be true. I was really undisciplined with my camp. I got in a lot of striking, a lot of conditioning, but I thought my grappling was going to be okay since I had beaten his teammate last November, and his teammate was a bigger version of him. He was ranked higher at the time when I fight him in jiu-jitsu. So I just thought that I was going to be able to handle this one quite well, and didn't go quite my way. So for this fight camp, I'm just making sure to cover everything and to stay disciplined. That's the only difference, really. I'm like back on the wagon.
Well, that's always good to hear. And where do you spend most of your training? And I know you fight out of a Championship Boxing Academy. Do you spend most of your time there as a boxer, or do you kind of move around a bit?
So I've been in MMA for 4 years now, and for the past 3-4 fights, most of my camps have been down at Spitfire. And for this one, for the last 2, I've been training mostly out of Champions. But yeah, when I'm at Champions, I spar with the boxers, a lot of good boxers with up-and-coming fights. So I'm really working the hands a lot. Gary has heavy hands, so that's my main focus right now. But when I'm there, I move around, I work my Muay Thai. We have some kickboxers that come in, a few grapplers, so there's a good variety of training partners.
So a good, well-rounded training camp, really.
Oh yeah, 100%. But like for my training camps, I find when I stay too long at one place, I tend to, I don't know, I need to travel around and get as much training as I can in with different bodies and different styles and whatnot.
A good variety.
Oh yeah.
So you talk about being in MMA for about 4 years. What made you get into MMA? Like, what makes you want to be a mixed martial artist?
Well, when I was a young kid, my sister's boyfriends used to watch the UFC, right? And I didn't even know what that was. I always imagined myself like opening a karate dojo or something. I used to train karate when I was a kid, but I never knew that MMA or any of this would come to be as big as it would be. But ever since I watched like my first UFCs, I knew that one day I'd compete in there. Like, MMA is different than any other sport. There's grappling, striking. So if you win an MMA fight, there's no excuses. You can't say like, oh, well, if they would have had a jiu-jitsu match, that guy would have won. Like, MMA is the real deal. So Yeah, but back to the question, when did I get into it? I got back into it because I did karate growing up my whole life, and MMA was banned in 2012 or 2015, so that option wasn't on the table anymore. But when the ban got lifted, I started up right away. Right away, started training, and
Well,
yeah,
that's
started
awesome.
training late October, and then by June the year after, I had my first fight.
Wow, that's actually quite impressive. So you've really been in the game as a karate athlete almost your whole life, and then started expanding kind of your tool set, if you will, as you got older.
Yeah, 100%. Karate. Where I'm from a small place, so we mostly had karate and boxing and all the traditional martial arts. We didn't have any jiu-jitsu or grappling or wrestling down where I'm from, but I've been focusing on that the past couple years now and starting to balance out quite nice.
And what are your goals as an MMA fighter? Like, what are you? Everyone, I think, dreams of being in the big show, if you will. What are your goals, and where do you see yourself like in 10 years?
Um, well, I'd say I'd definitely love to fight in the big leagues. I mean, I don't know many fighters who wouldn't want to, but really fighting for me is the same thing as a soccer player, a hockey player, right? You go to practice, you don't know how good until you test yourself out, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I started competing like at 16, 17 in karate, but a lot of people start competing a lot younger. So I just wanted to see what I was made of and if my style of martial arts was legit. So that's really what I think about MMA. It's just really to test myself and to have fun and showcase to everyone what I've been doing while I'm missing these family events and all that stuff.
Wow, that's so cool. And we always talk about how MMA fighters often have a hard time balancing work life with training camps and upcoming fights and things like that. So what do you do? Is MMA your full-time job, or do you have something on the side that does pay the bills for you?
Well, ever since I've graduated, I've been doing jobs here and there. I've worked in customer service. I've worked minimum wage jobs. I've worked construction jobs. My last job was finished construction. But yeah, I've worked all sorts of things, and right now my main focus is MMA. So for this one, this is one difference from all my other fights. I'm going to be focusing fully on this fight right here. No other distractions, no working late or whatnot. We're
Yep.
focusing primarily on Gary.
No, but that's awesome, right? You put your full focus on there and you get ready for it, and then eventually, hopefully, you get that shot at a bigger fight card or a bigger promotion, if you will, and then that all that hard work does pay off. So I follow your fighter page, and I saw you post, you're doing some outdoor training, shadow boxing and things like that. Is that a typical thing for you, whether it's winter, summer, to do some outdoor training, if you will?
Oh, 100%. Like, just for example, just for my conditioning, I used to go to the gym a lot in the gym, and I used to hit the treadmill. I'd run up anywhere between 9 to 12 kilometers, and I'd do that. But there's nothing like getting outside and moving your body yourself, running and getting some hill sprints in. And I love shadow boxing and all that. So basically, when you guys see me doing workouts outside, it's like I'm killing time. I'm just having fun. Instead of playing video games, I'm trying to be a little more productive with my time.
No, I think, and that's great, right? It prepares you for the fight, and it gives you, you get to be outside and you get to do the thing that you love.
Oh, 100%. And sometimes you're in the gym a lot, so changes. It's good for the mind to get outside and get some fresh air and stuff.
Absolutely. So let's talk weight cut. That seems to be the big issue a lot of the times with fighters, is weight cut. So you are a 155 fighter. My first question is, what do you walk around at?
So this morning I woke up. It's funny because we're following another fighter, and he's a week out from his fight, and he's actually as heavy as I am right now, 3 months out. But yeah, right now I'm 176, and I'm fighting at 155, so I've got a good 21 pounds to go. But for my last fight, talking about weight cuts, I was 183 a week and a half before my last fight in August. So I'm definitely learning from that weight cut leading up to this fight. So this fight, I'll probably only have like 6, 7 pounds to cut if I'm lucky. Whereas my last fight, I cut 37 pounds in like a week and a half. So,
Wow, that's got to be hard on the body. I can only imagine. So when you
oh yeah.
talk a long weight cut versus a short weight cut, like are you kind of, watching what you eat, or you have a meal plan? Is that really how you would do that? Because I know a shorter weight cut, I think you dehydrate the body a little bit and try to lose some water weight. So what is your long term plan for weight cut?
So when I first went down from 170 to 155, I got a straight meal plan, 6 meals a day, and that I still have it. I usually start it about 6 weeks out, but right now we're still a little over 2 months, so I eat for what I train. I have that hunter gatherer mentality.
Yeah.
So if I have like an easy day, I'll be fueling up on veggies and whatnot. Maybe have a little bit of meat at night, but I do have meal plans and stuff for the weight cut. But I think it's for this one, I'm focusing on getting my weight down as soon as possible because I learned my lesson from my last weight cut.
Which I think that's always a great thing, to learn the lesson and then be able to apply it for the next one.
Oh, 100%. Like the issue with this weight cut was I started getting good at cheating on my diet and still keeping my weight low, and then it kind of got out of hand for this one. So we're back on the meal plan and we're staying disciplined for this one.
Awesome. So I mentioned earlier, Mark, that I have watched a lot of your fights. Obviously, I'm at the shows. And I kind of want to, I'm more curious than anything. I wanted to talk about that Jericho fight where you were going for that amateur title. What is it in a fighter so you did go for the amateur title and then you decided to go pro right after that? What makes a fighter decide to turn pro? And I will say that it was off of a loss and then you went pro. So is it just based on number of fights, or is it you decided I might as well make the move to the next level?
Well, honestly, I wanted to go pro a lot sooner. If I would have went pro right away, like after my Jacob Palmer fight, which was before Jericho,
yeah.
If I would have turned pro right away, I would have been able to quit my job and focus on fighting completely. But the thing with Jericho is this, and I know it sounds like an excuse, but while he was up training with GSP and Vitor Belfort, I was scrubbing toilets at Subway. So, I mean, I was doing a lot of night shifts and stuff, missing a lot of training, and yeah, Jericho's definitely a tough opponent and someone you don't want to fight unless you have a full camp. So I showed up ready for a fight, and I was ready on the feet, but I didn't get the jiu-jitsu in that I wanted for that one. And as soon as he got me up against the cage, and as soon as he got the takedown, basically my mentality was, fuck, it's over. So that's what happened in that one.
Yeah, and that obviously is a tough loss, and losing is tough for anybody, obviously, especially in a title fight,
but
too.
Another thing, too, for the record, I didn't want that fight, and I didn't want to fight amateur again, but I ended up fighting amateur because the pro matchups just weren't there at the moment. And a lot of fighters in the Maritimes take times off. Like, they take time before fights off, or they'll take a year off here and there. Well, I just fight no matter what. If I'm working full time, if I'm sick, if I'm injured, I fight. So when you look at my record and you see a couple losses, I mean, it happens, right? But that's why my record isn't pitch perfect. It's because I always fight. I always try and make weight. And I think that's why promoters have me on their card, because a lot of fighters back out. A lot of fighters back out at amateur. And, yeah.
No, and I think that, and I appreciate you sharing that. I know, as you said, now that you're focusing totally on Gary for your fight on January 26th. But it's a lesson learned, right? You scrub toilets, and then, your mentality isn't there for the fight. So it's everything is a lesson, and hopefully you can build your career on those lessons, and moving forward as a professional, you become more in the win column based on those lessons.
100%. And, like, just to be fair, like, if Jericho is watching this, I take nothing away from him. Any opponents that have beat me could have beaten me on a full fight camp. Like, at certain levels, it's just sometimes it's whoever's on that night, and so taking nothing away from my previous opponents. They're all beasts, and much respect to them.
Absolutely, and I'm sure those who lost to you would say the same for you, because when anybody watches you in the cage, you truly are a beast and you showcase all of your skill sets, whether you're standing or whether it's on the ground. And I can guarantee that this fight on January 26th between you and Gary Brown will be quite the match to see, and it's going to be high paced, like you were saying. So Marc, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. Before we take off, do you have any sponsors you want to thank or any shout outs you want to do?
I've been fairly I stayed active all last years, but I haven't been sponsor hunting or anything like that. So those sponsors yet to announce, but I'll just give a quick shout out to everyone supporting me, my beautiful girlfriend who helps me through my ups and downs, and just all my coaches and my training partners, and for you for having me on.
Well, no problem, Marc. And again, we thank you so much for joining us here on Before the Bell, episode 1. And hopefully we'll be able to chat more on more interviews as you move forward in your career. And, I look forward to seeing you in the Octagon on January 26th for that bitter rival card put on by Elite 1 MMA. And for anybody out there watching, don't forget to buy your tickets. This Marc Hebert versus Gary Brown is bound to be fire in the cage. The sparks are going to fly, and nobody should blink because they're going to lay it all out in the cage.
Oh, no. Just if I can add this, Brian, sorry. I'm tongue twisted between French and English here.
No worries.
Gary, like I said, Gary doesn't take a step back. He has heavy hands. He might try and take me down. It might stay standing. Who knows? But it's going to be a wild fight. So whether you like me or you hate me, if I show up, switches on and ready to go, it's going to be a short night for Gary. And if I show up not ready to fight, it's going to be a short night for me. So if you guys want to see an exciting brawl, definitely don't miss this one.
Well, thanks again, Marc, and thank everyone for joining us on Before the Bell, brought to you by Sports Combat News. We will see everyone at Casino New Brunswick in Moncton on January 26th for Elite 1 MMA's Bitter Rival.